Hello and welcome. You're watching CNBC TV 18 and this is our special series, The Climate Clock, where we will discuss everything climate change, sustainability and its impact on economy and human life. The big climate event of the year, COP26, has recently ended and we had a lot of big updates coming up from the meet. India has been in the spotlight for watering down the language on coal usage to phase down from phase out, asking for hike in climate finance, increasing or expanding the NDCs. At the same time, back home, the capital is facing severe pollution issue because of which some activities have come to a halt. To discuss all of this and a lot more, we have with us a very special guest, Mr. RP Gupta, the Secretary of MOEFCC, that is the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Mr. Gupta, thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure having you with us on this show. So let me start with what has happened in COP26. India has been in the spotlight, has been in focus because it intervened last minute to water down the coal phase down phrase for usage of coal. Of course, other countries like Chinese delegates were as much of a driving force for the alteration. What next now? To reach the net zero emission target by 2070, biggest reductions will be needed to come in from coal itself. What is India's plan of action in this regard? Coal phase out, maybe in few years. Is that a possibility for a developing nation like India?
See, when we are talking about net zero, of course, net zero would mean whatever emissions are there by that time, there will have to be an equivalent amount of sink. Probably the plantation or some of the technologies like carbon capture and storage, those technologies. So that is what is the meaning of net zero. But we hope to achieve net zero by not hope, but actually we will be achieving net zero, and there is a master plan which is already there with the long-term strategies. Of course, whenever we are talking about the future, any kind of master plan or all strategies, they will have to be calibrated with time. As per the requirement of that time, the new technologies becomes available, there are new circumstances. So that will keep on, we will keep on calibrating it. The government of that time will have to continuously do it. But there is, as of now, there is a plan for and strategies for achieving net zero by 2070. Now, as far as coal is concerned, of course, in the ultimate analysis, when we come to 2070, the coal also will have to go, but not necessarily in the near future. Near future, with a horizon of about 2 to 3 decades, I don't think there is a edge of now. Again, because I am qualifying tomorrow if the technologies for renewable energy with storage and those are feasible and viable, which are financially viable, technologically feasible. If those becomes available, then of course it can be earlier also. But as of now, probably for next 2.5 decades, there is no possibility of totally doing away with coal.
Understandably so, because a developing nation like India depends a lot on coal usage as far as energy consumption is concerned. But the big talking point, of course, was also the fact that India's NDCs are subject to the availability of climate finance. A $1 trillion amount is what we have asked for. Can you elaborate on this aspect? What is the country demanding and what has been the update here?
See, when we said 1 trillion, this is for our NDCs up to 2030. And any kind of green development, that is normally a much costlier development. Again, I am talking of as of now, those developments, particularly renewable energy, when we talk about it, with storage. Renewable energy as such in itself may be cheaper compared to coal power, but when we talk about a stable renewable energy which is available round the clock as per our requirement and without any fluctuations, then it costs roughly, as of now, roughly twice the amount which coal energy costs us. So that is the difference which we are asking the developed countries to plug in. Of course, renewable energy is only just one example, but the green development in other fields, whether it is industry, whether it is services, whether it is agriculture or any other field, the whole economy wide when we take, then there is a cost of green development, and that cost we are asking them to be met. Apart from this, in 1 trillion, there is also cost of mitigation, in spite of all the mitigation efforts which we are taking, there will be requirement for adaptation. So, for adaptation purpose also, we require finance which the developed countries, as they had promised, they should meet. So, this 1 trillion requirement is up to 2030, and it will include the cost of mitigation as well as adaptation both.
So, sir, how was the response at COP26? Did India speak to any developed nations? Are there any talks going on, any negotiations? Was it satisfactory?
See, when we are in COP, we do not talk to any particular developing or developed nation. The developing countries also do not talk to any particular developed nation. Similarly, developed countries also do not talk to any particular nation. It is a climate finance system which should be evolved and which should take care of it. And that mechanism has been provided in the current negotiations. So, that negotiation will determine the financial requirement and how that will be met, what will be the total requirement of different developing countries, how it should be met by the developed countries, and what will be the principles or the projects on which it should be spent. So, that mechanism has been provided for, and we hope that mechanism in short period of time, about 2 to 3 years, it will deliver on that.
Okay, so this is an important point, of course, we'll be tracking, and the entire world economy as well will be watching out for. But let's move on. One of our NDCs was to create a carbon sink of around 2.5 to 3 billion tons, that is by 2030. What is the update on that? Have we expanded that as well?
No, we have not upgraded that particular NDC, and there is no plan to upgrade that. But of course, we hope that our policies will be able to achieve more than what has been promised, but as of now, there is no plan to upgrade that particular target.
And how much of this particular NDC have you already achieved?
Offhand, I don't have the figure, but roughly I think we have been able to do somewhere around 1.3 to 1.4 billion tons.
Okay, so that is about the carbon sink, but are we also working on an emissions trading system? Because right now, if I understand, only Gujarat has a system in place that is basically for carbon credits. How much do you emit and how much are you allowed to emit? Will we be seeing more states taking it up, or a pan-India policy, is that in place as well?
See, that is an experiment particularly with respect to emissions. Those are the pollution emissions, the air pollution emissions which Surat has implemented. But that is a good model which we will be upgrading for carbon emissions and emission trading all over the country. And Bureau of Energy Efficiency has been entrusted this job of developing the whole mechanism, the regulatory system and everything pertaining to carbon trading mechanism across the country. So yes, that is something which though developed for a different purpose. And air pollution, as you know, air pollution or water pollution, that has much more local effect compared to carbon emission, which are much more international and national. So the platform which we would be, Bureau of Energy Efficiency would be developing would be a platform and the regulatory system which will be for the country as a whole.
So by when can we hear something on this? Because globally it's an accepted practice.
Yes, Bureau of Energy Efficiency is working on it, and they have been given this responsibility, and hopefully they will, since they are already implementing a system of PET, that is perform, achieve and trade with respect to energy efficiency. Now it's the similar thing which is to be done in the carbon emission trading. So they were the best in the best position to implement a system of emission trading which is quite akin to the PET system which they are already doing.
Okay, we'll be watching out for your word on that, sir. But let's move on. India has not signed the methane pledge, one of the countries to not sign that. Do we have a plan in place, considering majority of it comes from agriculture, from livestock? What is the update as far as methane emissions are concerned?
See, what we said, that signing this pledge for something, when we say NDCs and any kind of pledge, for us it becomes a matter of that we have promised something, we must deliver on it. Unlike developed countries which they promised at their emission reduction targets but they did not achieve. They promised climate finance, they did not perform on it, and they did not come out well on that. But when we said whatever NDCs we had set, we are actually going to overachieve them, and that's why we have upgraded them. So for us, pledge is something that it becomes a matter that we have to in any case do it. But we have made it clear that we are not averse to working on methane for reduction of methane emissions, and we are open to international collaboration, and also we will be taking action in our national arena also for methane reduction. But pledge is something different from actually trying to do on our own and to do whatever to the best possible in our circumstances, whatever we can do, and whatever we can do through international cooperation, we will definitely do it. That is the position which we have made clear to the international community.
Okay, so that is an important point that you're making, but let's talk about more global updates. The European Commission, it is planning, in fact, pushing for the world's first carbon border tax on imported goods, and it plans to levy that 2026 onwards. What are your thoughts on that?
See, we have always maintained that trade is regulated under WTO, and environment, climate change, those are the issues which are being dealt by different forums, not by WTO. So these two should be kept separately, and bringing in environment or climate change or carbon emission in the trading arena is not acceptable to us. So we will be definitely fighting in WTO against it to bring these carbon emission into it. But let us see what happens. The developed countries also, they are not going to sort of get away with it, because they have done a lot of emissions in the past which are reflected in their logistics, in their infrastructure. So we will also have to think about, if finally it comes that they start doing it and WTO doesn't take any decision on it for not implementing it, then we will have to think of the system whereby we can account for their past emissions, which actually is the carbon is embedded in each and every particle of their infrastructure, and which supports their economy. So that should be reflected there, and I think we should come out well on that count. And in any case, currently the carbon tax we are imposing, if you see the tax on coal as well as the tax on petroleum products, that's nothing but the carbon tax which we are imposing. So I don't think there is any need for us to worry about it. Probably we may be benefiting from it, but as a matter of principle, trade and environment and climate change issue, these should be kept separate, because one is being governed by one set of rules which we had decided when WTO came into existence. The other set is the climate change, which has to be tackled as per its own convention rules and convention decisions.
Okay, that is the global setup, sir. I need to speak to you about what's happening back home. The pollution menace in the capital, it happens every year, every winter. There is a debate between stubble burning, industrialization, transportation. Why are we not more prepared for it? Because it happens every year. What are the measures that the government is planning on taking? And generally, since it's a recurring problem, what are the immediate plans in place other than banning, say, transportation or construction activities?
Yes, you are right. But over the years, if you see, the problem gradually has been reducing in its severity. Of course, there are days when it might spike, and spikes more than the corresponding days in earlier years. But on an average, if we see, this problem has been gradually coming down because of the number of steps which we have been taking. Now, the winter in this NCR region is a very peculiar weather phenomena, whereby there is no wind, there is moisture in the air, and the whole pollution which normally should get dispersed due to the wind, that doesn't happen. And because of this, the air pollution problem becomes severe. And apart from the local factors which are like industry, vehicles, construction activity, transportation, truck movement and all that, which are the local factors which contribute to it, there is no denying the fact that stubble burning, and also probably when Diwali is there, that also adds to the severity of the problem. Now, stubble burning, if you see over spread it out over a year, then the contribution definitely reduces. But when you see in particular days when this problem of stubble burning is there, then its contribution remains significant. But having said that, let me also clarify that if you take out the stubble part of the air pollution, even then the air pollution due to the local factors is also very significant, and it will keep the air in very poor quality even without stubble burning. So, we will have to control both the stubble burning as well as the local factors which are construction, vehicles, industry. So, we have to control the industrial pollution which is caused, and the solution to it would be converting to cleaner fuel like gases. We have to control the emissions from power plants, and the emission control for sulfur, SOx and NOx. The regulations are already there, and December 22 is the deadline for meeting those emission standards for power plants located in NCR region and also in other parts of the country where the pollution problem is severe. Then we have to control the vehicular pollution, and we will have to take the long term measure, particularly switching over to gaseous fuel in vehicles also, and probably to the electric vehicles. So, that is the long term requirement which will have to be ensured. So, also the industrial pollution, we have to control the industrial pollution also, yes, and that will be the solution. Plus construction, of course, construction, they will have to take the mitigation measures. Yes, please.
So definitely stubble burning is one of the reasons. We have put out policy saying don't burn crackers, ban transportation for a bit, or construction activities. Why not a step for stubble burning? Because a lot of reports suggest that it's actually more than 10% of an impact on overall pollution.
See, there is already ban on stubble burning. It's not that stubble burning is permitted. The problem is the action which has to be taken by the state governments, they unfortunately that is lacking. But then we will have to give another solution to the farmers, and the solution is already the machinery has been given to them, so that it's the in situ solution, that is mulching, and that is done. That whole stubble is dug and sort of buried in the local field only, which acts as a manure to the field also, which benefits them. Then there are solutions like ex situ solutions, where this stubble is used as fuel in power plants and industry, and the pollution, because in those units it is much more easier for the government and also those units to control the air pollution and those activities, then converting into biofuel. And we are working in all these solutions for achieving and controlling the problem of stubble burning. So, it will be both regulation as well as facilitating its use in other commercial ventures which benefits the farmers.
Yes, the government is going, of course, big on biofuels and other source of renewable energy. But last question before we let you go, sir. You briefly mentioned the thermal power plants and the deadline that you've actually extended. I have been speaking to a lot of these power plants, and they were of the opinion that because the new processes or new equipments are so expensive, that the cost of doing business will be way more than the profits or the revenues that they are making. And it is not economically feasible to move to those processes in order to meet the deadlines. Will government be looking at a one-time incentive, one-time solution for these processors?
I don't think when we are implementing a regulatory system, then they must meet the regulatory deadlines and regulatory norms and the regulatory requirement. And it is not for the government to extend the help, because power generation and those are all commercial activities, and for controlling the pollution it must be borne by them, and ultimately it is the consumer who bears it. So consumer either it bears through as the cost of the power, or it bears or the consumer as taxpayer bears it if government gives any kind of assistance. Ultimately it is both the same. But normally the principle has been that any industrial unit or power plants or any such thing, when they are causing the pollution, they are supposed to take the measures and meet the cost for mitigating those.
Mr. Gupta, thank you so much for joining us and giving us all those updates and details. It was a pleasure having you with us on CNBC TV 18. All right, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of our new series, The Climate Clock. But we have more updates coming up, more episodes and more explainers. So stay tuned to CNBC TV 18.